there's a shift in consciousness. And when we get to that point, which we are moving towards, when we get to that point, then that will help this whole situation. It will help elevate kindness instead of negativity, or positivity instead of negativity. I mean, we're born with a negativity bias. However, that also generally means that we're born with a positivity bias, but we tend to, our brains are wired from a survival mechanism to focus on the negativity bias. And that was a survival mechanism we needed when we were cave people.
Yep.
Fact is, our brains have not evolved to the degree that our world has evolved. And so we're still operating from that place instead of operating from where we could be operating today. So we're catching up.
My guest today is Robyn Simpson, founder of Choose the Tude and creator of the Kind Community Project. A culture and experience designer with over 30 years of expertise, she helps leaders build high-performance cultures with intention, including her high AI leadership philosophy focused on strengthening human intelligence in the age of AI. Her message is simple: kindness is a choice, and it's how we create a better world. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Call Cut with Angelique. I'm Angelique, and today I have a very special friend, Robyn Simpson, and she is what I would say the queen of kindness. She's not just one level kindness. She is making this a global initiation. She's had everything going from the kindness movements to educational AI training. Robyn, you are all over in the kindness world. And I'm so happy to have you here because we are both ambassadors for Kindness Worldwide, which is how we met. But you do so much, and we've had a conversation about it, and there's just so much going on in the kindness space, and I want everybody to know what you're doing because it's really, really powerful and transformational.
Oh, thank you. And thanks very much for having me on the show today. I really appreciate it. And look, I think where all this started from is um, a few years ago, my daughter was being bullied. Well, quite a few years ago now. She was only 5. And it really shocked me as a mum that it would happen. Like, maybe I was a little bit naive, but ultimately that's what started me on this path. I just thought, if bullying is happening really, really badly at that young age, what are we doing? As adults, what are we role modeling, and what are we allowing to happen and enabling to happen? And then I kind of went, well, what are we doing about reversing that and interrupting those patterns and stopping those, truly preventing that kind of behavior? So that kind of led me on this pathway of getting really deep into the kindness side of things, because kindness is the antidote to bullying. And I guess that's where I really dug into the research, and there are lots. What I've found over the years of doing this is there are lots and lots of people doing amazing things. We tend to be out there in the world doing our bits and pieces, and I felt like we could do more if we did it together. So I created the Kind Community Project, which is a platform where people come to connect, collaborate, and amplify kindness, share, cheer, and celebrate it, and make it the norm. So that's what I do at the moment. And then another aspect of what I'm doing is, you alluded to it, is the human intelligence and artificial intelligence aspect, because that's a massive a body of work at the moment where I feel there's a lot of fear around AI. And I think it's only because we haven't educated ourselves in what the human role is in managing all of this. So yeah, two quite different things, but actually kind of related as well.
Well, these are two fabulous things. And to speak to the bullying aspect, we see this all the time with kids, all different ages, and kids actually going so far as to take their lives at very young ages.
Yeah.
10. When you stop and think about it, I know my son is 9, and to think that a child a year older than him would want to do something like that is unbelievable. So I do think that we are so tipped into the negative that we do need things like this, especially for the younger generations, because there is so much out there. It's not just back in the day when we were in school, and they bullied you and you went home. It's like, no, they bully you online, they bully you on your phone, they bully you everywhere. I mean, you just never get away from it. So having a community too, where you can go and you can spread kindness and awareness about these things is so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, and look, the statistics around the bullying side of things are incorrect. They when I first started delving into this, the statistics were starting at the age of 12, and my daughter was 5. So that's 7 years worth of, a 7 years gap. I take the statistics with a little bit of grain of salt, but the fact is the trends are still spiraling out of control in the wrong direction. And, if we were really doing a good job as parents and role models and that kind of thing, the statistics wouldn't be spiraling out of control in the wrong direction. They'd be decreasing instead of increasing. And so I felt like we need to do something about this. We need to step up. We need to take responsibility and actually start to do things. And, I can do so much on my own, but I can do a lot more with other people. And as I mentioned earlier, there are so many people doing really, really great things out there, so many organizations. And if we do come together and collaborate, then we do get to amplify this. And I think one of the challenges we have, Angelique, is that kindness is seen as soft. And it's really not soft. It takes courage to be kind, and I feel like that message needs to get through a little bit more, and especially in workplaces. So I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I feel like workplaces are full of adults. Adults are the role models for the emerging generation, and so, if we're being unkind in workplaces uh, and it's okay to do that there, then how are we being at home? And what are we role modeling in front of the children? And so, it's up to us as the adults to take responsibility and make the changes. And I think and not just think, I have observed that a lot of adults are um, wary of being seen to publicly share, cheer, and celebrate kindness. However, the movement of many, many kind organizations and things like that coming together, that is changing, and which is
Yeah.
great to see.
I do think it's going to change, because I think the consciousness is going to change, but it's going to take a little bit for that to happen. One of the things you said is, well, a lot of things you said, but I want to jump back. So the kindness being synonymous with weakness. This to me is where people co-opt this, right? Because kindness is so powerful that it actually elevates your frequency. It takes you from a lower vibrational energy and actually pops you into higher vibrational energy. And it puts you in a position to make choices that are more in alignment with higher will than your lower will. Well, in order to make that a thing that people can't access easily, I feel like kindness has been given that bad name. That if you're kind, then you must be weak, or you don't have the guts or the this. And that is not true. I mean, I've said this a million times. I'm woo and F you. I can go kind. Yeah. And I will be there for you. I will be your best friend and I will do anything. But you cross that line and you're going to feel the wrath. And I feel that is something that has to be taught to kids. Boundaries, sticking up for yourself, not being afraid not to be liked, because being liked by bullies, are you really being liked by the right folk, right? Are those your people? And right to your second point, we as parents and teachers and et cetera, we have, and I don't want to use this because it's a heavy word, but I'm going to use it, failed children over and over. Even when you go to schools and you report bullying and they do nothing about it. Absolutely nothing. So we have a lot of work to do. And what's fabulous about this is that you're on it and so many other people are on it. Some of them have been on the show and we've talked about what they're doing, and you're also involved with what they're doing, right? So there's so much hope that we have to move forward and to get ourselves out of this spiral of negativity, this idea that, we have to find something wrong with another person. We have to find a way to exclude another person. And this comes from deep psychological need and ego and insecurity. These kids don't come into the world learning how to hate other children or to be mean. Something's going on there, and it's not being addressed.
Yeah, and I think you alluded to it earlier on. There's a shift in consciousness, And when we get to that point, which we are moving towards, when we get to that point, then that will help this whole situation. It will help um, elevate kindness instead of negativity, or positivity instead of negativity. I mean, we're born with a negativity bias. However, that also generally means that we're born with a positivity bias, but we tend to, our brains are wired from a survival mechanism to focus on the negativity bias. And that was a survival mechanism we needed when we were cave people.
Yep.
Fact is, our brains have not evolved to the degree that our world has evolved, and so we're still operating from that place instead of operating from where we could be operating today. So we're catching up, and I feel like there is a lot of movement happening. There is a lot of change, and even though we've got a very chaotic world right now, chaos is the conduit to change. So,
Yes.
I feel like we're on the cusp of change, and it's not going to be comfortable. There's going to be a lot of fear, and that's okay. We just need to breathe, take a deep
Yeah.
breath,
Yeah.
center ourselves, and take personal responsibility for how we work through our own change.
That's the key right there, because that whole change does begin within. The inner world is what reflects the outer world. So one person really can change way more than they know they can, just by choosing differently. you know, Instead of reacting to somebody by, yelling at them or screaming at them, or reacting to somebody by gossiping about them or trying to take them down. Find something attractive in that person. Tell them. I came from an abusive home. My father was an emotional abuser, physical, the whole thing. And my mom did her best, but they were always fighting, and there was chaos. So I was a terribly sad child all the time, moving from school to school, in elementary school, all of it. Hard to find friends, etc. But because I was upset on the inside and because I was angry, I had this habit of sticking my tongue out at kids when I was like at the grocery store, right? I would just be like, right? So, I mean, I know, right? And you're like, that's so effective, Ange. But I, one day, and I came to this on my own, where I'm looking at this little boy and he's standing in Grand Union back in the day. And I thought, well, what if I smile at him? What's going
Uh-huh.
to happen if I do that instead of, so I, I did. That was the first time. And he smiled back and he waved. That was the first time in my small life where it was like, whoa, okay. So the sticking out the tongue doesn't really work. That makes people upset. But the smiling actually invites people in. It's
Mhm.
so simple and, on the grand scheme of everything, so, juvenile. But it's literally everyone is walking around in the world right now doing that. That's that. That's it. And they just have to shift it, from sticking their tongue out at everybody. I'm better than you. I'm richer than you. I'm smarter than you. I'm that. No, 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 madam. No, 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 sir. We're all on the same spot. We're all in the same pot. You just buy into these illusions as being something superior to others. You haven't quite figured out yet that we're all kind of in this together. And it's the heart that's really unifying us, not the bank.
Yeah, yes, 100%. And, like, there were a number of things that popped up in my head as you were talking about that. Thanks for sharing your story. Yes. And you were operating as that 5-year-old or however old you were. You were operating out of that, "I've got to protect myself, and this is how I'm gonna do it." And that was your view of the world and your experience of the world until you chose something different, and then all of a sudden, it opened up a whole different experience, which is fantastic, thankfully. Um, and I feel like, unless people are open to trying something new, then they're gonna be stuck in their way, their view of the world, whatever that view of the world is. And another thing that you touched on that I love is that I believe we're all human. We are all human. I don't care what you look like, what you sound like, where you came from, how much money you've got, etc., etc. I don't care. You and I are human, so therefore we have something in common. And I feel like that very granular view is going to become more and more important. And look at what happens, Angelique, when crisis hits. So if we have a natural disaster, strangers on the street suddenly become the savior for their neighbor who they may have never even spoken to before. But all of a sudden, without even thinking about it, they become the hero and or the savior or the they just come and help, and they do kind things to help people out that they don't even know. And we see it over and over and over again. My question is, why aren't we like that all the time? We have the capacity. So why are we not behaving like that all the time? Would that not solve a lot of these problems?
Yeah, we're going to have to sit through a lot of uncomfortable moments.
Yeah, they're growth moments. And we are wired for growth, and it's how fast we grow. And this probably is a good segue into the AI side of things, because I think the big fear around AI is how fast, the speed at what the change is happening. So, for example, there's a lot of fear out there. You're talking about fear. There's a lot of fear out there around AI and it taking people's jobs and that sort of thing. We've been through this before, just in a different way. We've been through revolutions and we have adjusted. This revolution, I think that what makes it different is that the speed at which it is happening is so much faster. And people are afraid that they won't be able to keep up. But I feel like that's where the human capabilities become even more important. And empathy. Empathy is a massive one in this. Empathy is a form of kindness. And like these sorts of human aspects are going to become more and more elevated. And so if we start working on those now, which I believe we all should be doing, then we will be able to cope with this change and we'll be able to get ahead of it. We'll be able to work with it. In my opinion, AI augments us as humans rather than depletes us. That is a choice because you can choose to outsource your brain to AI, which then depletes your brain, which is not a great choice. Or you can work with AI, and that can actually elevate you instead of deplete you.
Isn't it funny how everything comes back to the same thing?
A choice.
Either, always choice, right? But finding that peaceful coexistence with something or someone that allows your energies to coexist without trying to destroy each other.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's both on AI and in the human realm, is that we don't need to destroy everything that has a different consciousness than we do. We just need to understand instead of dominate and feel like, oh, we're the superior intelligence. I assure you we're not. No,
I'm
whether
sure.
people, yeah, whether
Yeah,
people
I'm
want
with
to
you.
believe, yeah, whether people want to believe in, other beings or not, I assure you, we are not the most intelligent beings on the planet. If we were, war would not exist, nuclear weapons would not exist, hate, rape, all these negative, it wouldn't be, because when you have that higher level emotional intelligence, you no longer need to dominate. You no longer need to exert your power in that way. So we have a long way to go. We're babies. We really are. We're a baby civilization, and we need to get back to the idea that love is actually the highest form of intelligence that we have at our disposal. And things like kindness help you get there. Empathy, compassion, even if you're somebody who struggles with it, like me at 5, you
Poking your tongue out. Um, That's right. I think, all of those things, empathy, compassion, generosity, support, stewardship. This is a new one that's well, not new, but it's been around forever. But this is something that I feel like we need to look a little bit more into, and especially with the way that the world is changing. If we were being really great stewards of the world and ourselves and emerging generations, we wouldn't have the problems that we've got today. So stewardship is different to leadership. It's a different energy. And it's something that hasn't really been talked about too much and I'm going to say in the corporate world. Um, but you could probably apply that to politics and all sorts of other areas as well. Um, but I personally believe stewardship is something that we really need to start focusing on and learning how to do really, really well.
Yeah, I would say most people don't know how to do that. And politicians, well, I don't know about you guys, but our politicians are
Affecting us.
a whole,
So, on the other side of the
they
world.
are, you know, well, it's so interesting because even going back to what you said about so many things changing, people are very angry all over the world with Americans right now. But Americans are victims of a lot of the stuff that is going on that they've never known. When your media is owned by certain people and your information is owned and your books are being written and rewritten and your history is being co-opted and you believe that because there's nothing out there in the world to tell you that it's any different, you believe the lies that are told to you. And I think Americans are they're in shock, seeing everything that's coming down. And, somebody like me who's been into conspiracy theory since I was 19 is sitting here like, welcome to the club. But it's hard. And it's really hard when people attach an identity to their world, right? And that's why it's also hard to get people to be kind or compassionate or empathetic, because they attach their identity to their religions, to their beliefs. They attach their identity to so many things. And now we come in and say, oh, by the way, everything you believe is a lie. That's a lot for people to swallow.
It is. And
so
that fear again.
Yeah.
Fear of loss of identity. And was I fooling myself this whole time?
Yeah. And so people act out in different ways. People get angry. People become mean. People do, they get sad. They become completely paralyzed. There's so many different things. So kindness is very, very important right now because all of us are going through an awakening. But, not the kind that they think. People think awakening is like somebody coming from the clouds and being like, oh, and it's like, no, awakening is like, we're going to shake the shit out of you.
Wake up.
Upside down. It's not going to be fun, friends. Like, it's not going to be woo, 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 It's going to be really tough. And so all of these things that you're doing and others that are trying to put things in place to support the journey is fabulous because we're going to need it. We're really going to need it even more so as we push through 2026.
Look, I think, or I believe that all of this comes back to personal choice and having the strength within to be able to confidently make choices that are right for you. And whether that's, dealing with the changes that are happening through, around the world from a political point of view, from just what's happening in lots of different ways, and as well as the AI side of things. I feel like it comes down to us becoming more connected with who we truly are, what we believe, our uniqueness. So we're all similar and unique at the same time. And just having the courage to make the personal choices and not worry about what someone else may think of you. I mean, that's a hallucination. Unless they've said it to your face, it's actually a hallucination.
Yeah.
So, but we have these voices in our head that tell us these things. But we need to calm that voice down, really get centered and work out who we are and what is important to us and make choices based on that. And then I think we'll be in a much better place.
Well, that's beautifully said, Robyn. And that's also why I did the call cut method. Call cut is about making the choice, stopping yourself in the moment that you're actually reacting, and choosing a better way. And when we train ourselves to do this all day, I'm not going to just react. I'm going to stop. I'm going to take it in. I'm going to think about it and make a decision. I can do it from a place of arrogance. I can do it from a place of kindness. It's all going to be up to you how you want to do it. But you will find in people who have done this over and over again in different ways, right? They do find that they make more powerful choices when they're conscious of mastering their own mind. Because most of us we're wired a certain way. So we have all these different triggers, and those triggers then cause these reactions based on these beliefs. And then you said it before about a hallucination. And I love the way you said that because it's so true. Perhaps many of us are hallucinating about what other people are thinking, because let's be honest, most people are not thinking about you.
Correct. Our ego telling us that we're that important.
Right? It's true. Like they're not. Okay, sure. We might engage with somebody who doesn't like us. Okay, whatever. That's a them problem. But the fact that they would be hyper obsessed with us 24/7 is just absolutely not happening. They have their own life, their own stuff, whatever going on. And it's a good thing when we start to break that ego's hold and say, hey, you. No, you're not that important. You know who you should be important to? You. So figure out how you're going to fix this machine and don't worry about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think this work is going to be very important to get people into the space where they can be kind to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because so many people really that's where it starts. They don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel happy in their lives. They're seeking outside of themselves. And the ability to be kind, and that's why I told this story today to you, is because it's so easy to smile at somebody rather than say something mean, right? It's easy to compliment somebody rather than to tear them down. And when you train the brain to do this, I personally believe envy, jealousy, competition, comparison, all that disappears.
Mm-hmm.
Because you no longer see that person as a threat. You see them as an ally, as you.
Well, the reason I started Choose the Tude, which is choose your attitude, it was because I was seeing so many people out in the world blaming everyone else, blaming their parents, blaming their boss, blaming the government, blaming, whoever, about their situations. And it's like, hang on a minute, you need to take personal responsibility for your choices. You got yourself here. You chose everything to get yourself here. And I know that I get a bit of pushback when I talk about this, because some people go, oh, there are things out of our control. You can choose your response. You don't have to react. You can choose a response. And it does take a lot of work, I've got to say. It's lifelong work, I guess. But if we were teaching our children this at a very young age, rather than teaching them how to be better or one-upmanship or, that kind of thing, I kind of feel like we'd be in a much better position today if my generation was taught that, which it wasn't. So I guess part of what I would love to see is a change where the next generations are being taught this kind of thing. But at the same time, we're in a world where we're full of people that haven't learnt to take personal responsibility. And I mean at an absolute core level. You can talk about it, but there's a difference between talking about it and doing it and living it as an embedded value. So it takes repetition. But the other thing I'd just like to point out about what you were just saying is that if people are choosing the negative, the deficit becomes much, much bigger, because you know what it's like. If someone is nasty to you, you have that feeling and it just eats away until you choose to stop it and then replace it with something positive, which if you do that, then like you said, you smiled and therefore you felt good, they felt good, everything feels better. So it kind of bubbles up the other way. So it's not just stopping it in the moment. It's actually what happens as a flow-on effect afterwards. And those flow-on effects, because they're emotional, they're actually rewiring our brains. So, if you want to have a strong, healthy brain and a happy life, then stick above the line, stay above the line, stick with the positive, choose the good stuff, choose God.
Yeah. But you're making a valid point, because you do ruin somebody's day by being unkind to them. You absolutely do. And you never know what a person's breaking point is. You could be saying something to them because you're lashing out, but they're at their last straw.
Yeah.
A ton of things have happened to them. And then, here you come. Conversely, the same is true. Somebody could be having the worst day, last straw. And, there you come and you're like, hey, you look great today. Or you have a beautiful smile. I mean, I do this to people as it is a little psychotic, and people do get scared sometimes. They
It's got to be that's a courageous kindness. It takes courage to be kind.
you see it. People's energy completely changes after they're afraid. They're like, oh, so your point about that ripple effect is 100% on the money. We do. And our energy affects everybody. It impacts people through other people. And that's why these nasty lower vibrational energies are so toxic, because they don't just affect the person who's projecting them out. They project the people taking them in, and then everyone around them who's going to have to deal with the aftermath of however they've internalized what's happened to them.
There's two things that really stand out from that little piece that you shared. And one is that kindness calms. Kindness calms the nervous system. Negativity puts us into fight, flight.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
But kindness, just a tiny little moment of kindness, calms. The other thing about what you just mentioned is that, negativity is the norm. So that's why people are looking at you weirdly when you go up to them and give them a compliment out of the blue, because they're not expecting it, because it's not the norm. We need to flip that. That would make a very big difference to the cost of our health, not just mental health, but physical health, the whole lot. We wouldn't be spending trillions and trillions of dollars on treatment if we made these very, very small changes, or had the courage to do that, to make kindness the norm instead.
I think you're right. Hang on, Robyn, my eye. I'm having so many problems today between this thing burning the top of my head, and I'm like, and I got to keep moving my hair because it's itching, right? And then like my eye, my it's like,
while you're doing that,
no, Satan. Go for it. No, Satan, you will not stop this conversation, sir. We are going to push through all of these issues.
Exactly right.
I always know. Energy. You know what's funny? I know when there's an important conversation that's going to happen. I get a migraine and I throw up. So that happened today. Oh. And I was like, no, it's not happening. No, madam, we are getting on this call because now I know there is something important, So
right.
I said no. And she's in Australia, for God's sake. So it's not like we could be like, hey girl, can we just do this?
Well, we can these days with technology, thankfully. But
yeah. But I agree with everything that you have said. We are in a predominantly negative reality. And in a strange way, that's why negativity always seems to be rewarded, because you're not going against the nature of the reality. You're going with it, right? We're trying to break it. And so is the earth, by the way. The earth is trying to elevate to this next level. And so she's also like pushing through the grain. And we're supposed to do the same thing with her. We're supposed to anchor our love energy so we all go together. So this is to elevate this from this negative reality to a higher vibrational reality where what you said before is true, that we won't have to work on being kind. We will just be kind. Mm-hmm. We certainly don't have to work on being mean.
No.
It seems to...
Yeah, we do need to break a few cycles and systems, though, in order for this to happen. Like you mentioned the media before, that's a big cycle and system that needs to be broken, needs to be turned around. Our education system needs the same thing. Like, there are so many different systems in our world that have been designed to keep us in certain places. And that was fine at the time, but we have evolved and the systems haven't. So, that's what we're up against at the moment, is some very out-of-date systems that are designed to keep us, being employees and being the worker bees and that kind of thing. So it'll take time, but there are more and more people starting to see that it's possible, and it's a human thing to do. Like, it is our human essence. So, we're just returning to our essence, in my opinion.
We are, to the organic, angelic human blueprint, which is what we were originally created for, and we have been co-opted. But that is a whole other thing, probably more for ancient aliens than for this. And my whole audience is going to be like, That's funny.
Where did we go? Where did we get there?
This girl, definitely my husband, who will be like, "Oh, there she goes." Um, but there is so much truth in the idea that our consciousness has to change. And yes, you are 1,000% correct. These systems have to break, they have to be rearranged. And in a strange way, the reason that there is such a push for all of this AI, at least from people who are in control right now, is they do want to use it to maintain a more of a lockdown situation on people because they know that we're breaking free. They know that the gig is up. We realize that we don't need to be slaves to a system. Our children don't need to be slaves to a system, that we are actually supposed to be helping each other, healing each other, lifting each other. And I do like what you say about AI, Robyn, because AI inherently is not evil.
No.
It's
No, it's
it has a lot, yeah, it has a lot of benefit, but it will need people with a higher consciousness, okay, to train it. r- Because if not, unfortunately, it's kind of a victim of its own creator,
Mm.
right?
which are humans. Like, humans created it. Like, well, it's our data that's going into it every millisecond, right? So it's data that's created by humans being brought together in these large learning models in different areas. So we create it. We do have, like, yes, it's moving along very, very quickly and it can augment itself and that kind of thing already. However, this is where the concept of stewardship becomes really important, in my opinion, is that we need to, as the humans, we're the ones that make the decisions. We're the ones that have the ethics side of it, or have the power to have the ethics. If basically AI is amplifying the systems, the processes, the patterns, the trends, those sorts of things. But they're all things that have been created by humans, and humans have the empathy, the care, the ethics, the stewardship, the decision making. So it's I feel like those sorts of skills need to be increased and honed for us to be able to keep uh, a, a, a balanced relationship with AI.
Yeah, it's funny. My good friend Matthew Kilkenny came on here. He does all this stuff with the ethical AI.
Mm.
And this has been what he's really been screaming about from the rafters with AI from the very beginning is you have to have ethics when you're dealing with something on this level. You can't just make it the wild, wild west and be like, hey, it is what it is. There's a lot of human consciousness is co-opted by darker energies that are not looking to elevate or to, they don't follow the rule of harm none,
Hmm.
if you will. So there does have to be some fail safes in place. There does have to be things in place in order to protect people. Because if not, it's just tapping into consciousness over and over and learning everything on both sides of the polarity spectrum. And that's where we end up with Terminator 2. So we have to be careful, right? Everything becomes self-aware because everything is powered by energy. There's been unbelievable AI technology that's been around for eons, right? Some of it was hidden in the Romanian mountains under the Sphinx, et cetera. This is a whole other rabbit hole. But the point being that there have been higher intelligence that have created these things. We're just getting around to it now. And the thing about higher intelligence and beings that have more light consciousness is they have more accountability. They have an ethical code and a morality code. Humans need to refine that. And that's why I personally think that the question isn't, should we use AI? Absolutely. It's, we're moving too fast. Wisdom hasn't quite caught up to, right? So we're sitting here in this space where it's like, all right, we have this unbelievable tool, but we're 5-year-olds with this tool.
Yep.
We're not adults.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes scary. So I feel like what you're doing and so many others, you're trying to make the adult human consciousness
Yeah.
elevate, right? So we can have these fun toys and we can move into these beautiful communities without destroying ourselves in the process.
Yeah, 100%. And I love the way you put that. We are 5-year-olds with a new tool. It's like putting a 5-year-old in the driver's seat of a truck, right? That's where we are at the moment. And so unless we train ourselves to drive that truck on the right side of the road, in the right direction, and take care of it, then we are going to crash. So I hate to put that so bluntly, but that's where I see it. And look, we've got the capability. We do have the capacity. We just need to make the choice. Again, it comes back to choice.
To choose the Tude, which I love, by the way. That's such a fabulous, do you have shirts? Because
I used to. Yes, I had a whole merch range. Yeah. But that was a wee while ago. But yeah, and they were great.
Yeah,
You would
because
look great in them, Angelique, because it was black with a lime green Choose the Tude, and
Oh,
yeah, and
I love
and
it. If you ever do it, I'll
my
buy one.
saying was, "Attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching?"
Robyn, I just got chills up my body. I
It's like,
love
I used
that.
to have that on my car. It was the funniest thing. I'd stop at lights and I'd see them. It was a little sporty TT, and I had it sign written on the side of my car, and you'd see people read it, and I was watching would watch their face, and they'd read the "Attitudes are contagious, is yours worth catching?" and they'd be like, "Oh." It's like, oh, maybe yours is not worth catching.
I love that. If you ever do it again, or if you have one hiding, I will buy it off of you. I want
I'll go and have a
one of
look and see
those.
what I've got.
Yes, I want one of those. I love that. Attitudes are contagious as yours worth catching.
Yeah,
I love that.
it's a little bit edgy, but it's because I really wanted people to stop and think. And another one I use is "Attitudes are contagious, pass it on, pass a good one on." Because we don't want the bad ones. We already have those. We want the good ones to be passed on.
Yes.
But "is yours worth catching" really stops people, and they have to think about it. It interrupts their brain pattern, and they have to think about it.
And that is the trick, my friend, is the interrupting that loop, right? However you do it, getting somebody to just stop themselves from going down that spiral and making another choice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I absolutely love everything that you're doing, Robyn. Can you tell our audience where they can find you and how they can connect with you?
Okay, well, I'm pleased that you're going to have this in your show notes, because people don't understand my accent. So the main website for me is choosethetude.com, and also LinkedIn is a really great place to find me, Robyn M. Simpson on LinkedIn. So those are my two key places. Obviously, I hang out in the Kind Community Project most of the time, so you can always come there, but you can find that by going to Choose the Tude.
Choose the Tude, and we're going to have all of Robyn's information in the description, so you can just click and be on your way to connecting with Robyn. Robyn, I am so happy that you joined me on Call Cut with Angelique. I could feel like we can talk and talk and talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah.
I absolutely love what you're doing in this world. I know that your mission is going to go global, and more people are going to be part of your kindness community. And you are going to be one of those people that we look back years from now and say, she really made a difference.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. And look, I'm so honored to be here talking with you. I love chatting with you. We know that we could talk for weeks. And I love what you're doing and what you're sharing and that kind of thing, and happy to support anytime.
Thank you, darling. It was so great having you on the show. And we say to all of you, if you could choose anything, choose to be kind.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you so much for joining me on Call Cut with Angelique. New episodes drop every Friday. If you like this content, please subscribe, like, share with your friends. And remember, folks, no matter what life gives you, you must always keep shining.